Thank you. Let me start by saying what a pleasure and honor it is to be here today. This, of course, is an event that I was looking forward to greatly, the Bangladesh Investment Summit 2025. So just a bit about myself before we move on to the discussion. So this topic is close to my heart. I'm not a healthcare expert insofar as the quality of our panelists are concerned, but I have worked in financing for the longest time and investments, and something I've cared about ever since I moved back to Bangladesh in 2011 was getting more investments in the country. And I used to work with foreign investors, and one of the things I think people looked at when we spoke about investment opportunities in the country was, what are the safe sectors? What are sectors that will keep generating returns, that will give robust returns? And in all my time working with investments, one conclusion I've reached is that in a country like Bangladesh, which has obviously its share of historical risks, so to speak, you get these defensive sectors like healthcare, which also offer fantastic returns. So without further ado, I'd like to dive into this discussion and talk about the robustness of returns in this space, what the growth spaces are within the larger ecosystem of healthcare. As has been discussed already in the keynote speech that Silvana gave, this is a very exciting space. We have currently a market that's $14 billion strong and growing. There's a lot to do in this space. We don't have enough hospital beds. Clearly, the infrastructure has a massive space to grow. Income per capita for people of Bangladesh continues to grow. And as income grows, people obviously spend more on healthcare, spend more on pharmaceuticals, spend more on diagnostic centers, spend more on even advanced medical procedures. So this is, to my mind, one of the most exciting discussions we're going to have at the summit. And we have just the right panelists for the discussion. If I may start with Mr. A.M. Shamim. And Mr. Shamim is the founder and managing director of Labaid Group. So can we get a round of applause for Mr. Shamim? Shamim bhai, if I may call you that, I'd like to start off discussion by getting a perspective from you, because you have over several decades a unique vantage point of being able to see the healthcare ecosystem in its totality. If you could just set the stage for us and just take us through your experience as a leader in this space of where are we going with this sector? What does the future look like? What does the outlook look like? What should investors be looking at? Over to you.
Hello, শোনা যাচ্ছে? আচ্ছা, thank you all. First of all, I want to tell that our healthcare system and healthcare delivery is really good. And all of us should take services from Bangladesh. 2 weeks back, I was in UK, and I talked to 3 or 4 families. They're complaining a lot about national health system of UK. And you know that 2 months back, one CEO of an insurance company in US was shot dead by a patient relatives. So about Bangladesh, our healthcare system, what we do a lot of criticism, it's not like that. Like for myself, I have done my angioplasty in Labaid Cardiac Hospital. My mother, she has done her pacemaker in our hospital. And I know that 90% of the people who are here is taking their medical services from Bangladesh. So Bangladesh needs trust, more development, more investment, but as a healthcare, we are not in that bad shape. So first of all, I want to tell that we are in a good track. Our pharmaceutical industry is very good, and it can defeat any country of the world. So I have confidence with our hospitals. We will not go to outside Bangladesh. We believe our doctors, we believe our healthcare, we believe our hospitals. So now I want to give some statistics, because I have been in this sector from 1985. That our healthcare, what we already told, that 20 to $22 billion, it has 5 or 6 divisions. Primary healthcare, then pharmacy, pharmaceuticals. Third, like consultation and diagnostics. Fourth is secondary healthcare. Fifth is tertiary. And lastly, digital health and telemedicine. And the breakdown is like that, that primary healthcare belongs to around 500 million businesses in Bangladesh. Consultation diagnostics is 5 billion, secondary is 2 billion. Tertiary, what we heard every day, that $5 billion patient is going to outside Bangladesh. That is actually tertiary care. There's another 5 billion, and digital health and telemedicine is less than $1 billion. So I want to now talk one by one all the parameters, like primary healthcare. Don't invest in primary healthcare because the return is very low, and what the money we get from the banks is like high interest loan. BRAC has started this primary healthcare, but I have doubt that in primary healthcare, in private sector, it will not work. But on the other hand, government is working for primary healthcare, I know. The second is the like pharmaceuticals. Pharmaceuticals is doing very good, like 98% we are servicing from our side. Now the pharmacy chain, you know that in Bangladesh, food like Las Pharma, Apollo, then Tamanna, AKS, then Wellness, they are working for pharmacy chain. But don't invest in pharmacy chain because in the pharmacy, the margin is very low, 12.5%. We have already done 26 pharmacy. But you know the rent, this investment, salary, electricity, I can guarantee you that except large pharma, because their modality is different, no one can do profit in like retail pharmacy. Next is consultation and diagnostics. This market is around $4 to $5 billion. And you know, in last 30 years, Labaid, Popular, and Ibn Sina are the major player. In last 30 years, no one could like sustain or stand in this diagnostic and consultation. Because here the doctors are the main players. If you like say at a small center, it's very difficult to get the patients directly. It is somehow referred by the doctors. So new investment in diagnostics, consultation, it will not work. Number 4 is the secondary. Like in Bangladesh, around 14,000 diagnostics and hospitals are working like in remote villages, thanas, and they are giving 90% of the secondary services like appendectomy, cesarean section. You know, in a village of Rajshahi, they are doing a cesarean section only by 4,000 taka. So in secondary, like healthcare services, don't invest. Now the main bulk came, the tertiary care. This is the area you have to invest. In tertiary care, what we every day see in the paper, patient is going, that is going, that. The real statistics is yearly 3.5 lakhs patient is going, out of that 2.5 lakhs is going for only diagnosis. The next part is cancer. We have started a cancer hospital, it has a good future. Second is transplantation. Because of our government policy, I am telling to our secretary also, because of our government policy, we can't do the transplantation. So every year, around 600 liver transplantation, 2,000 kidney transplantation, and around 2,000 bone marrow transplantation is going to India. So this 4,600 patient itself is near to $1 billion. So that this part we can think how to develop all the transplantation. Next, one by one, like cardiac, we have already given the services. And then nephrology, accident emergency, orthopedics, and neurology. These are the 6 or 7 hospitals. I will request the investors, just give the money in the 6 or 7 areas. Don't go for other places. You lose the money. In Bangladesh, like a good like Mao Shishu Hospital, you will not get. So do 3 or 4 Mao and Shishu Hospital. Last day I was meeting one lady, she was telling that my children, she is 7 years age, I don't find a doctor who can give 20 minutes time. So this is the area, just you think. Lastly, I want to tell that you will hear a lot of things about telemedicine, digital health. No, it will not sustain. For last 5 to 10 years, Pulse, Dr. Rola, I'm not telling them any bad thing, but because of the cost and the doctors are taking the maximum money. So this digital health, you will find the digital health, but it will not work. So these are the actual pictures. I'm giving you the summary of the total healthcare. One thing more I want to tell, that is, say, now you'll speak after 5 minutes, please. Eh? So I'm not discouraging digital health, I'm not discouraging telemedicine. This is needed, but it needs
We'll come to you.
time.
We'll come to you. We'll come to you.
আচ্ছা, next
আপনি
the
বলার
thing
সুযোগ
is,
পাবেন. We'll come to
next
you.
the thing is what I'm doing, telling all these things from my personal experience. I'm not trying to make something narrow or small. আচ্ছা, like doctors from outside, like what we are doing now, going to China, this is not good for Bangladesh. Going to China is not the solution. Second thing is like the foreign management. You have seen that last 30 years, it's not working in Bangladesh. So my suggestion is, number one, invest in tertiary care. Number two, you select the long-term players in healthcare. Number three, invest in local hospitals, but make it strengthening by its quality with good governance. Thank you all. I don't want to make narrow anyone. Thank you all.
Thank you. So I think there was a question and a response from the audience. We will come to you, and I understand that there's diversity of viewpoints being discussed, which is exciting. So let's have that debate. We definitely want to have that, maybe in the Q&A section. So with that, I'd like to come to you, Omar. You've been patiently waiting. So very impressive CV, I have to say. And of course, you're with Renata, a very impressive organization with presence in over 50 countries, I take it. So I have a bunch of questions for you, but maybe let's start with the first, which has to do with, we were just discussing before this panel about the prospects of the domestic market. Maybe we start with that and your views on where it's headed, and perhaps also a bit about the importance of ROI, R&D, research and development in this space. Over to you.
Sure. So first, I'd like to thank everyone so much for having me on this panel. My name is Syed Omar Kabir. I'm a clinical pharmacologist trained at Oxford, and I basically oversee Renata's pharmaceutical division. Now, just echoing slight divergence from Dr. Shamim's words, I think, yes, a lot of the areas that he said to invest in are very lucrative, but there's 1-year ROI and there's also 6-year ROIs. And I think in technology and other services, while I'm not a health expert, I'm a pharmaceutical person, I'm sure people can see returns in the long term. I think that should calm a bit of our audience down. Now to what I'm actually here to talk about, which is the domestic pharmaceutical industry. So for the domestic pharmaceutical industry, I think the proof is really in the pudding. You know, Bangladesh has, other than the global powerhouses of pharmaceuticals in Asia, being India, China, and South Korea, Bangladesh is actually one of the strongest pharmaceutical industries in the eastern part of the world. And this has been fueled not just based on a population effect. I know everyone loves to talk about the fact that, oh, there's 180 million people, that's why the market is so big. Well, there's a lot of people in Indonesia. There's also a lot of people in the Philippines and in Pakistan. Why is Bangladesh's pharmaceutical industry performing so well? Well, you can boil this down into 3 factors. First factor is geographical density. So the fact that Bangladesh does not have a lot of land, that in most cases is a significant disadvantage. But in the case of pharmaceuticals, it is a significant advantage. Why is that a significant advantage? Is because we are able to access multiple pharmacies, multiple hospitals within a short geographical area. What that means is that you have companies, pharmacies, doctors alike in certain zones of the country. And that allows you to be able to control the entire commercial value chain. And I'm going to stress on this point a little bit more. Bangladesh is not dependent on wholesalers or large distributors. And this is what creates anti-competitive, oligopolist, monopolist systems, like much of what we see in the US, where we have 3 main buyers for pharmaceuticals across the entire industry. In Bangladesh, you don't have that. In Bangladesh, you have companies that distribute their products direct to pharmacy, that promote their medicine direct to doctors, and this has allowed for the country to be able to have incredible access to medicine available throughout the country, even at last mile delivery. You know, we often hear about how do you get medicines to the most rural part of Bangladesh. Guys, go to the rural part of Bangladesh. There's 10 bloody pharmacies there. There's more pharmacies there than probably on my street where there's 2. So that's one, geographical density. The second thing is competitiveness. So while we, like to, traditionally, my father being a raging communist, would like to hate on capitalism, Bangladesh's success in pharmaceutical industry has really stemmed from extreme competition. I saw the likes of Mr. Halimuzzaman here. I see Simin Khala, Simin Madam here. I know all of us stay up till at least 1 a.m. at night waiting for our sales figures every night. And this competition has fueled innovation, it has fueled excellent operators, and what it's also done, which sometimes falls below the cracks, is the fact that it has created employment. And this is not low-skilled labor employment, but high-skilled, highly educated levels of employment amongst the youth. Before, if you were a biochemist in maybe 1996, 1995, thank God I wasn't studying biochemistry in 1996. I was being born in 1996, so that was a bit of a change. But if you were a biochemist or a biologist, you would go be a teacher. Now, that is a very, very noble profession, but sometimes people want to do other things. Today, if you're a biochemist, you could see yourself being a QA head, an R&D head of one of the largest companies, not just in Bangladesh, but in Asia. And this has happened due to competition. And the third point I would like to mention, before I just touch quickly on R&D, is operational efficiency. Bangladesh has, in terms of its pharmaceutical sector, incredible operational efficiency. In terms of market size, because the cost of our medicines are some of the cheapest in the world, it might not come up in dollar value. But if you look at, in terms of units, number of tablets, number of capsules, number of vials, Bangladesh is actually the 6th largest producer of medicine in the world today. And that has come from having incredible operational efficiency. We are lean, and we're able to produce at high volumes. And I'll give you some examples of that. During COVID-19, all of the Western world was running around chasing, where will remdesivir come? Where will molnupiravir? Well, a pharmaceutical company here called SKF was the first company to release remdesivir globally. And actually, there was countries around the world asking for remdesivir, being like, what do we do? The other thing, and this is something more recent, is last year, this country went through a political revolution, extreme volatility. Yet, despite having minimal, if not no price changes, the total market grew 12.32%. And during the August revolution, and basically, a semi-civil war, all pharmaceutical companies were active. And we were producing products 24/7, 3 shifts, 2 shifts. Myself, I was waking up or going to bed really at 7 in the morning because I was making sure our distribution gets done before all the fighting starts at 10 a.m. That's how efficient this sector has become. Now, these are all very positive things. And traditionally, the domestic pharmaceutical industry has been immune to macroeconomic crisis. But this, unfortunately, is no longer the case, because Bangladesh has had a currency devaluation of north of 60%. Based on that, our cost of goods, whether that's our excipients our raw materials, our consumables, all of these costs have gone up massively. So while companies have grown in terms of their revenue, their bottom lines have been significantly squeezed. As an operator, that's a terrible picture. But as an investor, that's a dream. Because today, pharmaceutical companies that used to trade at $1.6 billion in value with revenues of 500 million, that's roughly a 3x multiple on revenue, now they're trading at 1x revenue of their market cap. And this is not just public companies, this is public and private companies. So today, investors not only look at a sector that is poised to take on the global market, but a sector that as soon as pricing is accommodated to reflect the new costs, this sector will experience large gains in their bottom line because their revenues have grown, but their profits have not. As soon as this mismatch is mitigated, you will see gross profits and net margins go back to the 17 to 21% multiple that we used to see. Should I touch on the R&D part now?
Or we can just come back.
Yeah, we'll come back.
Awesome. Thank you, Omar.
Thank you.
Appreciate the applause. Clearly what you had to say resonated with the audience. If I may turn to Mr. Futoshi Kono, who happens to be director at SHIP International Hospital. And this is interesting for those of you who are not aware of Mr. Kono's background. SHIP International Hospital is an international hospital in Uttara in Dhaka, and he is one of the investors. So he's actually done the entire journey. He's walked the walk of investing as a foreign investor in the country. So I'm optimistic you'll have tidbits to share, insights to share that'll be relevant to other foreign investors. So why don't you, if I may ask you to just take us through your journey of what are the challenges and opportunities you saw along the way, and what's been your journey like so far in setting up this hospital? Over to you. I think the mic needs to be switched on. If someone can come. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm Futoshi Kono, and I would like to explain the point of view of foreign investor from Japan. SHIP Healthcare is a Japanese major healthcare business group and has been involved providing hospital facility, logistic, and elderly care service. In Japan, where the birth rate is declining and the population is aging, the healthcare industry is shifting to care mix and elderly care, AI diagnosis, and genetic therapy. But we believe that our SHIP strength in hospital development technology will have a lot of space to play in the global South market. As we know, Bangladesh has very large demographic bonus with young population making up to 2/3 of total population. And the population is expected to grow for a long time until 2070. In addition, top 4 major deaths in past 20 years has been replaced by lifestyle disease such as stroke and heart disease. So we believe that this is the country that will need acute medical care centered on surgery and other such treatment from now on. Therefore, our group established the joint venture in Bangladesh from 2016 and completed the renovation work within 3 years. From 2020, we served for COVID-dedicated hospital 2 years. So that's why we started general service from 2020 and started cardiovascular service from 2023. So due to 2 years pandemic period, we are now in the 4th year of general operation. So we just one step away from break even. However, there is a very strong demand of advanced medical care for heart disease. And we had a good start with 150 cardiac surgery cases from the beginning year. Our hospital has strong cardiovascular surgery team, including 2 Japanese experienced senior surgeons and 4 local surgeons. The history of cardiovascular treatment in this country started with technical transfer by JICA, Japan. And number of bypass surgery performed annually is very much competitive, even to Japan. However, since aortic aneurysm treatment is more than 20% of total case in other Asian countries, like India, Japan, Korea, only very few cases performed in this Bangladesh. Due to this circumstance, we believe more than 30,000 patients are dying without treatment. But hopefully, we already have provided this service in this market. So we are turning our attention to this field, currently working to technical transfer and development with the support with Japanese Ministry Economy, METI, and Bangladesh NICBD in Global South project from this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your very succinct and very positive storytelling. I'm sure other investors will get to speak to you after this if they want to know more. So with that, if I may invite Dr. Hak-Sun Kim. By way of a brief background, Dr. Hak-Sun Kim is a professor at Yonsei University Health System, and he wears many hats. In addition to being a professor and a spine surgeon, he's also an expert in hospital infrastructure planning and management, which is something I think we need in Bangladesh. And he's had this experience in China, Korea, and of course now Bangladesh. And Dr. Kim actually has a translator. So I will ask the question, which has to do with, I would like to understand from the perspective of hospital infrastructure planning and management, and all the experience Dr. Kim has had in other countries, especially in China and Korea, what are some lessons for Bangladesh?
예. 안녕하세요. 저는 한국에서 온 김학선 교수입니다.
Good afternoon. I am Dr. Hak-Sun Kim from Korea.
예. 저는 병원을 건립한 경험이 한국, 중국, 그리고 치타공에서 지금 막 시작한 세 나라에서 병원 건립한 경험이 있습니다.
I have experience of planning and managing hospitals in Korea, China, and Bangladesh, Chittagong.
병원 인프라를 계획하고 관리할 때 가장 먼저 해당 지역에 대한 인구, 건강 문제, 기존 인프라에 대한 충분한 이해가 필수적입니다. 예를 들어서 저희가 세브란스가 합작한 칭따오 세브란스는 그쪽에 고령화에서 뇌, 척수, 불구들이 많아서 이런 경우에 재활 중심으로 가고 있습니다.
So first, when it comes to planning and managing healthcare infrastructure, it is essential to have a profound understanding of the region's demographics, health issues, and existing infrastructure. For example, Severance Hospital is currently working on a joint venture in Qingdao, China. Given the aging population in Qingdao, there is a relatively high number of patients with chronic conditions related to brain and spinal disorders. Considering these factors, we are building a hospital specializing in rehabilitation.
두 번째, 관계자들 사이의 협력이 아주 중요합니다. 그 나라의 중앙정부, 지방정부, 의료기관이 협력해서 일관성 있는 정책을 가지고 꾸준히 유지해야 됩니다. 제가 과거에 한국에서 병원을 만들 때는 그 지방정부가 행정적으로 그리고 경제적으로 많은 도움을 줘서 토지를 제공하고 일부 건설비까지 제공했습니다. 그래서 저희가 시작한 지 5년 만에 개원을 해서 환자를 보고 지금 2년째 잘 보고 있습니다. 이에 비해서 제가 칭따오에서 한 것은 중앙정부하고 지방정부하고 환경 문제로 좀 트러블이 있어가지고 늦어져서 같이 시작했는데 지금 이제 이 안에 공사를 하고 있습니다. 이런 식으로 중요한데 이에 비해서 치타공에서는 영업무역과 같이 해가지고 굿 파트너가 있어서 지금 2년 만인데 파일럿 병원을 벌써 건립해서 개원하고 있습니다. 나중에 잘 돼서 400베드가 되기를 기원하고 있습니다.
And secondly, close collaboration among stakeholders is crucial. Central authorities, local governments, and healthcare institutions work together to implement coherent policy. I worked to build an expansion hospital in Seoul, and it was with the Korean government's help. Thanks to the administrative support and land provision from the local government, we opened the hospital just 5 years after planning, and after 2 years, we're still running it smoothly. In contrast, the hospital project in Qingdao started around the same time as the project that we did in Korea. However, it is still in the construction phase due to the different understandings of the environment. And however, in Chiragang or Chatogram, thanks to our trusted partner Yongwon, we have opened a 100-bed pilot hospital in less than 2 years since the project began, and we are planning to open a 400-sized hospital as well.
현재 방글라데시의 의료 시스템을 강화하기 위해서는 일부 동의를 안 하신 분도 있지만 전체 의료의 EMR이 필수적입니다. 이런 EMR을 필수적으로 해가지고 그 결과를 가지고 평가해서 나중에 원격 질서도 할 수 있는 기본 자료가 되기 때문에 필수적입니다.
In order to enhance the medical system, I believe that this may be a topic that people might have different opinion on, but I believe that EMR is very important and it's so crucial. With standardized EMR throughout the country, the efficiency of the treatment will go up, and it is the basic and the ground backbone data, so it is really important.
두 번째는 의료 전문가 교육을 체계화하고 객관화해서 해야 됩니다. 그래서 고품격의 의료 전문가를 만들어야만이 우리 같은 투자자가 병원을 오랫동안 안정적으로 유지할 수 있는 근거가 됩니다.
And secondly, organized medical professionals training is paramount. High quality medical education is essential for investors like us to operate hospitals sustainably, effectively in a long term.
이것이 저희가 메디컬 스쿨도 만들려고 직타공에서 만들려고 하는 근본적인 이유가 됩니다.
This is the very reason why we're trying to build a medical college in Chittagong as well.
예, 감사합니다.
Thank you.
That's very exciting, and we're very thankful that you're lending this expertise to Bangladesh, and I do hope you're able to leverage from your expertise in the coming months and years. With that, I'd like to move to Martin Holtmann, the country manager of IFC. Martin, I've had previous trysts with the IFC, especially when I was at a brokerage company in Bangladesh overseeing foreign investments, and previously when I was at Morgan Stanley, I recall us marveling at the returns IFC generates globally. So IFC is, of course, a very astute investor. And in your case, of course, because you've had this wonderful portfolio of experiences in East Africa, Latin America, and Russia, what I think I would love to know from you, and hopefully the audience as well, is your take on Bangladesh as a market, as an investment destination, given the fact that you've had these experiences in other markets as well, especially for healthcare, of course.
All right, well, thank you. And thank you for, in my language we say, thank you for the flowers. For the praise. First of all, there is no perfect healthcare. I think this was said before, right? You go to any country in the world and you ask them about how they like their healthcare system, and people are going to mostly complain. It's like farmers, when you ask a farmer about the harvest, you'll never hear it was just perfect, right? It's just part of human nature that we're not satisfied with what we have. I just spent a week with a British colleague, and you can ask the British about their national health system and what they think of it. When we take that as a baseline, I think, and Silvana said that very clearly in her opening speech, in her keynote speech, Bangladesh has done extremely well compared from where we came from. We've progressed to a level that many other countries around the world actually aspire to in terms of longevity and the availability of primary health care especially. Now, we have made investments in IFC and the healthcare sector here. In fact, I sit here with two clients, flanked by two clients. But I also have to be very modest here. Out of probably more than 120 investments and $9 billion that we have invested over the years here in the country, we have done 3 investments with less than $100 million in the healthcare sector. Okay, so for us too, this is a nascent space. My own journey in the health system here has actually been good. I've had to go to hospital a couple of times, and I really have to say I had nothing to complain about. Now, maybe I lucked out. Maybe I went to, because it was United and Prava, I went to some of the, the better performers. But on my own customer journey, and for those of you who are from outside of Bangladesh, I just invite you to, use the services yourself to see just how good they are. Now, what about the market? Now I come to your real question. So what's the assessment of the market? The market potential is huge. We've all already heard the numbers. Silvana shared some of them. The gross numbers, the macro numbers are amazing. The market should be at least 4 times bigger than what it seems to be right now. So we're talking about a health market that should be in the range of $40 to $50 billion a year, rather than where we are today, as a minimum. We have huge room for growth, especially with the growing middle class. We have the lowest bed density, the lowest physician density, and the lowest nurse density in the region. India has 3 times the number of nurses per 1,000 population, and Nepal 5 times as many, okay? And we just heard here from the real investors, because these are the people who are really putting their own money at risk, just how important it is to invest in those kinds of services. What are the big growth areas for the private sector? I think this has been mentioned many times, mostly in the NCD space, because that's where middle class spends money. That's where the market potential is. And it's kind of both a curse and a blessing that those needs are rising in this market, and that's cardiovascular, neoplasm, which is cancer, and metabolic disease. We are facing an avalanche of metabolic disease in this country. It's horrible. It's really horrific. Not only in Gulshan, it's also in the village, because as a country, as a nation, we eat way too much sugar. We're sugar addicted. Okay, so I will add one more for the private sector that hasn't shown up yet, which is dental. You can make tons of money as a private sector investor in dental services. And as societies become rich, they want to have nicer teeth. And it is actually a matter of health. I'm not a health expert, unlike some of the other people on the panel, but tooth care is, of course, dental care is something that's extremely important. I'm totally enthusiastic about the pharmaceutical sector. I think you made a super pitch as to why we are so competitive in that. I think many of the same advantages that apply to the garment sector also apply to the pharmaceutical sector here, in terms of just our ability to be world-class competitors. What would it take? So why don't we see a stampede of investors coming in from outside? It's maybe the last question I want to ask myself here. Why aren't we seeing more of them? Okay? Why don't we have British, American, French, German, whatever investors or Indian companies coming in? And the Indians are here, but mostly in diagnostics so far. Well, because the market is completely closed. It's completely shut off, okay? And so we need strong reforms in terms of easing market entry, making that just easier to get in, also making it easier, and this is part, of course, a big of the topic here of the investment summit, how to bring money in but also take money out, because that's the deal. We will not attract investors if they find it too hard to also take their profits and their dividends out of the country. Fortunately, the current government is doing a lot to help to change that. We have, of course, a lot of red tape. We need single window licensing, tax simplification, and of course, as had been pointed out by my co-panelists, a lot of complementary services in training staff, because health services at the end are depend on people, on trained people. And the good news is we have millions of them. We need 2 million jobs every year just to accommodate the entrance into the labor force. And health services, to me, sounds like one of the best things we can offer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. That was extremely comprehensive and a whole set of insights. And I just wanted to echo your perspective from my personal vantage point about the need for reforms and that the time is right. And big kudos to the government, the interim government, for taking this seriously and taking this up. So we're doing well in terms of time, but we don't have time for a full second round of questions. So I just want to open it up to panelists who might want to add. I know you do, and you have a perspective that we were discussing that I think is very valuable for the audience regarding R&D. So maybe we start with you, and if anyone else wants to chip in and add further thoughts for the sake of the audience, feel free to. Omar, over to you.
Sure, thank you. So I think one of the things that I wanted to mention is you see that 98% of local demand is met through the pharmaceutical industry as a whole. However, Bangladesh, has not done incredibly well in terms of pharmaceutical exports. And that's why we advertise the number of countries we're in, as opposed to the dollar value of our export industry. And that's largely because Bangladesh has been, in my view, and perhaps some people as well in the industry, believed sort of in the thesis of our facilities are beautiful, business will come to us. Unfortunately, this is not true. No one will try and save $1,000 per batch of, let's say, 50,000 tablets just to move their manufacturing over to Bangladesh. You need to offer more than just cheap costs. You need to offer value in terms of IP, you need to offer value in terms of your R&D, and mostly in terms of your differentiation. And what does that really mean? Well, basically, to be able to be good in pharmaceutical exports, you need to be able to develop products that are bioequivalent. Bioequivalent basically means your drug and the innovator drug are performing the same in a human body, and that you measure that through clinical trials, which you will hear from a panelist on the next panel as she's taking strides to open up a CRO in Bangladesh. But the main thing here is Bangladesh right now has very few overall drugs approved in regulated markets. Renata last year managed to launch 13 new drugs across the EU, Australia, US, and now we've received approvals in Canada, and we have over 78 bioequivalent drugs. But this has taken more than 7 years and a considerable amount of R&D investment. Now, I truly believe with the type of investors that are in this room, if you are looking to invest in Bangladesh for both the local and global market, you need to think about investing in companies that truly display a strong prowess in R&D. And we need to move away from thinking just high volume to high value, high complexity. Because the future of pharmaceutical exports is centered around drug delivery. Can you make drugs that, instead of taking an injection once a day, it's once a year? Can you make a injectable that used to be, in an infusion bag in hospital, driving up healthcare economy costs, to something that's in a pre-filled syringe that you can take at home? This is what you call value-added medicine. And these products actually have considerable amount of IP. And you are able to retain your basically brand or license for years on end, and offers great life cycle management. The other thing with R&D that's very, very important in Bangladesh is we think Bangladesh's cost advantage comes from unit cost per tablet or capsule. We are incorrect. That is absolutely not the case. If you compare our conversion costs relative to our most successful neighbor in pharmaceuticals, India, we're basically 5% cheaper. No one cares about 5%. Really, no one cares about 5%. Pardon me. What people do care about, though, is arbitrage. As an investor, you're looking for arbitrage. Where are you finding the most value? Well, in Bangladesh, your R&D costs are 50% lower than other generic markets for complex drugs. Your analytical costs are 38% lower. What this means is, if we have an industry where investors are continually putting in money into R&D, we will be able to develop products faster, cheaper, and own the IP. So the CMO business, in my opinion, is not a good business. CDMO, or developing your own products where you do contract development for somewhere else, or you do your own R&D, that is a good business. But that business requires investors. Really, it requires dollars, because we are purchasing expensive raw materials and things like that for development. We don't have any returns on this. This is purely on a risk basis. But if investors truly want to see astronomical returns, this is an area where Bangladesh needs money coming in globally. And I really strongly echo the statements that Martin made, is that investors need to see a way to get exits. Well, in R&D-based products that can be exported, you can be very creative. You can co-own the asset. You can co-own the license. It's not like you have to say, hey, I'm going to own half your facility. You don't have to own the facility. You have to own the IP. And for that basis, it's much easier to get money out of Bangladesh and get dividends elsewhere. So I think that's really why I'm a strong believer in R&D in this sector. Just because I'm sub 30, I have to say this before all my colleagues will, hate on me. The R&D vision, or the momentum behind R&D as well, is actually being carried out by young people, by the youth of Bangladesh. And that's also why you see scientists. I'll give you an example. We invented a drug for pediatric leukemia. Other than one guy who was 48, the rest of us were 24 when we came up with the idea. And this drug is a patented drug. Bangladesh has young people, young smart people, and this is where I think the opportunity for pharmaceutical exports really stems from. Thank you so much.